What's going on, Elevated Community? We've got a new podcast episode out right now. Go check it out. We got a great guest on tonight. His name is Aaron Hopkinson. He was actually my coach 2 years ago when I did my first 6-day run. I had found him through the Iron Cowboy racing team. If you haven't heard of the Iron Cowboy, his first big thing that put him on the map a couple years back in 2015, they did 50 Ironmans in 50 states in 50 days. And Aaron, which is our guest tonight, he was his wingman and crewman for that adventure. Fast forward a couple years from there, they teamed up and went on the world's toughest race, which was down in Fiji. It was a 10-day event, over 600 kilometers, like 400 miles, through doing all types of crazy rock climbing and mud mountain bike riding, all kinds of crazy stuff. And their last adventure, which might be considered one of the greatest endurance feats of all time, was last year. It's called the Conqueror 101. They did 101 triathlons in 101 days. This time they did it at a static location in Utah, but it was crazy to follow them, guys. They started March 1st, 2021, and it looked like it was freezing cold the whole time, and what an adventure. It was so inspiring to follow them along. Aaron did the bike portion with James the entire time, so 114 miles every day for 101 days, which comes out to like 11,200 miles within the 100 days. So that's like going across the United States like 3.5 times. So, big shout out to Iron Cowboy, which is his name's James Lawrence, for completing all that. He's got an amazing team, his wife, his running partner Casey, which is his other wingman, and then Aaron, which is who I have on tonight. So we go into all these adventures that Aaron's been on, go into his experiences, and him just kind of going through it and surviving and really thriving through the whole thing, helping James get through the whole thing. So he's got some great stories, guys, some great insight. Go check him out. You can find him on IronCowboy.com. You can hire him. He's still doing coaching. I had a great experience with him a couple years ago when he was training me for a 6-day run. He's a great guy. He's a great team to be a part of, guys. Go check him out. This episode is sponsored by us here at Elevated Lifestyle Lab. We are running a 20% discount for Valentine's Day for the full month of February. Just enter code VDAY, V-DAY at the checkout screen. You'll get 20% off, guys. Hope you enjoy. How's it going?
Dude, I'm great. How you been, dude?
Good, man. Good. It's been a while. You've been up to a lot of adventures since the last time we talked.
There's been a few in the works.
Yeah, just to say lightly, for sure, man. Well, thank you for coming on, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. It's what you do fits Elevated's motto just perfectly. Living an elevated life. I mean, you've been doing that for quite a while now, and although you coached me for a half of a year, we never got into like your story of how you got into endurance racing and stuff. So I wanted to have you on, and there's like 3 big adventures. Obviously, you know them, but let's start back as far as how did you get into endurance racing, triathlons? How did that all come about?
Yeah, so I basically got into it. It's been about 11 years ago now.
Yeah,
but I've always been kind of fast at like running and that, but I started wrestling in high school, and running was used kind of more of a punishment. So everybody like tried to get me to be on the track team and whatever. And I'm like, dude, why would you want to run for fun? And so that was always kind of with that. But then one of my uncles, he's way big into cycling, and he's going out to the Tour of California. It's like Lance Armstrong's last year racing that. And we have an aunt out there, and she invited him out. And he's like, dude, come with me. I was like, all right. So I kind of started watching. I'm like, man, cycling's kind of cool. And then at that moment, him and some of my other family members were trying to get into triathlons. I'm like, all right, that sounds cool. So kind of got a bike and just kind of went with it and signed up for a couple sprints and Olympics and won my age group on a few of them. So I was like, oh, I'm actually kind of good at it. So just kind of went from there.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's cool. It's funny how you look back at like going through high school. Same thing with me. I was never a runner. And then, fast forward 10, 15 years, it's like, that's all we're doing now. It's just like, we love the torture from some weird reason, right? Yeah, man. And then, so just to give our listeners a quick recap, I guess you got it. You and Iron Cowboy kind of met up during the triathlons, and you did. I just wanted to share your three big adventures that I know of. In the past, you started off with the 50-50-50, which was the Iron Cowboys 50 Ironmans in 50 states in 50 days, and you were a wingman for that adventure. And then that went a couple years later, you did the world's toughest race. And then the most recent adventure was the Conqueror 100. So we can kind of start in order. And I want to just get your experience on how it all was. Because what I've learned from getting into this endurance racing, sometimes crewing for someone and being the wingman is in a way a little bit harder than just grinding out a race. Because like in that aspect, you can just put your head down and just grind. But when you're taking care of somebody, you're driving the RV from state to state, it's almost harder, man. So I wanted to pick your mind and see, how did the 50-50-50 go when he approached you with that idea where you're like, you're nuts, dude?
Yeah. So when I was kind of getting into like triathlons, I was training with a lot of people that James, the Iron Cowboy, coached. And so I knew of him for pretty early on. And then one of my buddies was like, hey, dude, you should have James coach. I was like, all right. So James started coaching me actually in the beginning. And then we started doing a bunch of kind of like training rides together. And he kind of telling me about the 50 and that. And I was like, man, that's cool. I was like, he's just like, dude, I want you to come with me. I was like, no way. Like, I've known this dude for like 4 months and he's already like, he's wanting me to kind of crew with him and do that. I was like, so I didn't really think he was really serious about it. And then kind of a couple months kind of passed and he's like, so you gonna come? I was like, well, you really want me to? He's like, dude, I need you. I was like, all right, I'm in. So we didn't really know each other real well when we first kind of got into it, but then we did a bunch of events together and kind of going, and then it kind of just grew. And during the 50, like, I don't know, we have this like kind of bond with him and me and Casey. He was the other kind of wingman, and me and Casey were the ones that, so we'd hop in drive the cars get them from state to state during the middle of the night. So it's this constant on, and way more than kind of what we originally planned. So like the beginning of it is like, oh, we kind of go out and ride and run during the day. And then that was the original plan, because I signed up for my first Ironman like right after it ended. And so it was like, he's like, yeah, you'll have time to train and this. And then I got like a week into it. I'm like, there ain't no way I'm going to be ready for this.
For sure.
So like we're sleeping, I don't know, average probably 4 or 5 hours a night. And that's not even during the night. It was kind of broken up during the day. So we'd, once he finished, got him in the cars, we start driving, get the next place, kind of shut it down for a little bit, sleep for a couple hours, get James going in the morning, get him off on the bike. And then we'd kind of do everything we needed to kind of take care of stuff around. And then we'd shut down for a couple hours. He'd cut back on from the bike, start the run. We get him going on the run, sleep for another couple hours, and then just kind of repeat and start going. So yeah, in a way it was kind of, yeah, the crew side of it, like more exhausting than what you kind of would think it would be. Cause like you have to be kind of all in, and everybody's like, whoa, what kind of stuff do you have to do? I'm like, I don't know, whatever he needs me to do, I'm willing to do it, and kind of put the backseat to kind of my own needs. And cause I'm there just for James. And so it's just kind of all of his needs and needs of his family, because they're all there too. And then Sonny. So it's like all of us was kind of taking care of each other while still trying to take care of James and then keep pushing on.
Yeah, man, it was, I watched the documentary, and it definitely seemed like you said, going into it, you might have thought if it was going to go smoothly in one way, but when you actually start doing it, it opens up a whole can of worms as far as just, like you're saying, getting the car from state to state and finding a place to sleep and getting the correct nutrition. And he's got his whole family with you guys. So you guys are rolling deep with the squad. So it's like, there's a lot of, and like you said, your well-being goes onto the backseat of what James needs. So it doesn't matter if you're hungry, if you're tired, you got, like you said, you're all in, you're there for his, getting him to the finish line. So it can be daunting, man. I've only crewed a few times and nothing compared to that, but it can get like, you think you're like, I'm tough, I can do these races, but like the crew side, it's like, oh shit, man, this is hard.
It is, but it's fun because I don't know, kind of how I am. Like I love helping people and seeing like their successes, and so it's like it's cool to be like I'm capable of doing like a lot of stuff on my own, but like I see like that, and it's just like to be able to, I don't know, give someone else like your attention and kind of help them elevate this and kind of get to a different point. Like it's cool to see that, and like I've been coaching, so it's awesome. And like I love seeing like the success of like my athletes and kind of what they're capable and able to do, not thinking that they're ever able to accomplish something like that. So once you see like that happens, it's cool because there's way more out there and what you can do than what you think you can.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I didn't realize back when I hired you to be my coach for my first 6-day run, it was funny because I was telling you like I want to go after the world record. So I was such a newbie at it, and you're like, yeah, we're gonna set it up, and then I'm like, no, I'm gonna run 105 miles a day. And I could tell obviously you've been around, these crazy ideas, so it was nothing but support. But within 18 hours of the first day, I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. It's a crazy, but yeah, it's how did you get into the coaching? Did you get into that after you got done with the 50-50-50, or you were doing it while doing that as well?
No, I didn't get into it until after the 50-50-50. So we finished that. And then James had always been kind of coaching. And so after that, he kind of launched a coaching program. And then he hired me to be one of his coaches. So he didn't get into it until that point, and we've been doing it since then. So
nice. Yeah, doing it helps to be able to live this lifestyle and still have the free time to be able to do what you want to do and reap the rewards of coaching, man. It's good stuff.
Definitely.
So then kind of walk me through after the 50-50-50. That's, I'm sure a few years had passed, and then I had hired you the summer of like 2020. And I think sometime within that time is when the World's Toughest Race it came out. So when did you actually shoot that? Because I know it came out like August of 2020, but when did the actual race take place?
Yeah, so the World's Toughest Race is Eco Challenge, and so it was a race kind of they'd started in like late 90s, early 2000s. It's an adventure race, so it's like a lot. I mean, there's normally kayaking, mountain trekking, but it's all map and compass, like orienteering stuff. So they give you your map, and then they give you like some coordinates. So you have to like plot it onto your map and then use your compass to kind of navigate to get to there's no like signs, anything indicating like where to go. And then just have like different little checkpoints you have to like go to and meet at. And so they brought that back. It was the end of 2018 is when they kind of announced it. And the girl on our team, Sonia, she'd kind of, she saw like they're advertising this and was like, man, we need to do this. So she contacted James, and then he got us all together. We submitted a application video for it and got into it. And that ended up going, was it September of 2019 is when it actually started.
Okay. Yeah, that thing was intense, man. It was like, it was like 60 plus teams, right, from around the world.
Yeah, there's 66 teams all around the world, and each team had 4 team members and then 1 crew. So our crew guy, we only saw him 4 different times. So like we started the race, and then they had like camps, and that's where all the team crew guys was at each of these camps. And so we wouldn't see them for probably 2-3 days, kind of depending on the leg that we were on.
How did you even like prepare to train for that? Because like you said, you went through everything from climbing rocks to like riding dirt, like a mountain biking, to rope climbing. Like you went through the whole ringer. Like those boats, what are they called? Billy rafting, or Those ones that just looked like you were paddling forever.
Yeah. So yeah, this race, like our whole team was made up of like triathletes. So all of us was kind of experiencing like triathlon and like just running, and like we had zero experience on this stuff. So like, I mean, I had kind of like rafted a bunch, and so like I knew a lot, like kind of how to do a boat, but like they sent us like some certifications we had to be ready for. So we did like a whitewater certification. We had to be certified on the rope section. So like they took in count like the safety of each of the competitors. So they sent us things we had to be ready for. And so we knew stuff like that would be expected. And so we did like some training camps down in Moab here in Utah. We did our whitewater certification there. We did our rope certification there with some climbers. Then we'd kind of just mountain bike and run and hike kind of on our own. And then we did another one down in California, where we did a lot of the outrigger canoes. So they had the old outrigger boats. We learned kind of how to sail out that way. And so, because during the race, we sailed like the traditional boats like they use in like Moana. So like we had to like went like native on this. So it was super cool kind of experiencing. It was out in Fiji. That's where the race was. So a lot of it was like the traditional billy rafts, which is bamboo poles that are lashed together. And then we had to go down this river. And so this is all these different kind of things. And you had to be kind of knowledgeable in like every little aspect. And so that's what made something like that like difficult. But like we went into it felt like we had enough knowledge and capable of kind of getting through any part of it.
Yeah, what was the total distance? It was like 600 something kilometers, right? Like the total?
Yeah, it was, what was the total distance? I don't remember.
It's like 400 and change miles, I think. I remember like
Yeah, it was like
over. That's crazy, man. What was your hardest part? Because I remember the part watching all the teams struggle so hard was when everybody had the mountain bikes on the shoulder, walking up the muddiest hill that you could find in the jungle. Or getting in the cold water, man. I saw that like everybody was struggling with that. What was the hardest part of that whole thing?
Yeah, the way kind of eco challenge was, they'd take a discipline and they'd like expand it to like this crazy distance that you wouldn't like they'd go, what's a crazy distance we can do this for? And then they cut it back like a little. So like the time you're like on each individual thing was like way longer than what you ever thought you would be doing it for. And so like you had to like be physically capable of doing stuff, but it's like the mental game of it like came into play like way more, is kind of what we felt like. Because like with something like the billy, like it wasn't like hard per se, like, but it was like 26 miles, so it was like a 40K billy, but it like we had a bunch of rain that came in the night before, so the water level rose way higher than what the river kind of normally was, and it wasn't really flowing fast. And so basically, as a billy, you're supposed to push out the bottom of the river with your bamboo stick, but the majority of it was too deep to ever really get to the bottom of the river. And so you're basically kind of having to paddle with these like just little sticks. Our analogy is like we're using toothpicks to basically kind of paddle with. Yeah. And so like everybody was like, oh, it should take you about like 6 hours. We get like 6 hours in, and we're looking on the map and we're only halfway through it.
Oh, no.
So we were in being on this water for, I think it's like almost 13 hours.
Wow.
And so it was like all through the night. And so it's like, you just get to this point where it's just like, man, I just want to be off this river. I just want to be done. Like, yeah, I'm super capable of doing it, but it's just like the taxing on your mind. And it's just like trying to keep pushing forward and staying like in the moment. And it's just like, at that point, I just kind of had to look around and like, dude, I'm in Fiji. Yeah. I'm this cool little bamboo raft. Yes, I'm like sinking in it, but when would I ever have an experience like this? So it's like I had to quickly learn to like the negative energy and thoughts that you think of. It really affects you, what your mind and your body and everything's capable of doing. And once I kind of shifted how I thought and like looked at the positive on everything I was doing, like it just became this experience of like, man, this is beautiful and awesome. I'm in this moment, and just kept very present. And then once we finished it, it's like something ended and it was like a totally new different thing. So it's like you just get to the end of that stage, and then we got on the mountain bikes. It's like, oh cool, now we get to go ride. And so it's just like you just have to like kind of push through enough to get to that point where you swish, and then it was like a totally different thing.
Yeah, that's huge. The mental struggles when you're out there, it really is like one of the biggest things to try and be where your feet are and not like have the negative talk and all that stuff that can really creep in and ruin that experience for you. So that's great that you got to that you figured that out mid run. How do you like for nutrition and hydration out there? You just whatever you got on your back is what you got?
Yeah, pretty much. And so like way we kind of look at it, like, oh, we should probably be on this section for like 2-3 days. And we had a bunch of those kind of like backpacking dehydrated meals. And so we'd throw a couple of those in, and we had some like protein powder, stuff like super high in like calories and like protein, like stuff that'd be like easy to pack and like mix with water. And so we just kind of prepared like how much we thought we would need during like that stage. And once we hit our camp where our crew was, we could switch out and get new supplies. And so we just basically had to pack enough for like I think it was like 3 days was like the most that we didn't support.
And what was the hardest leg, you would say? Was that the one on the Billy boat? Was that the hardest leg of that journey, or what was your hardest point?
Man, I think the toughest one was there's a section that we came. It's right after like a big night hike. We came into this camp, but like it was a big, I think it was about like a 40K kind of section as well. And we're kind of coming in. We had a bunch cross the river a bunch of times. The river kind of just like kept like winding like this, and the trail went like straight through it. So we crossed this river like, I don't know, I think it's like 20 times. And so like we got off of that and we were all just kind of exhausted. And so came in super early, slept for a couple hours, and then as another hike. And that's where it kind of went up to the big is 1,000-foot fixed rope. So we have like ascenders. You just like climb up this waterfall. It's 1,000 feet.
So we had to like that. Yeah.
So we had to go through the water again to go up to this waterfall. So we're just like, we basically been in water for like 2-3 days. And a lot of people at that point was kind of starting to get the trench foot or like the jungle rot. So your foot's just been exposed to so much moisture that it just kind of starts to grow this like fungus on your foot. And so a few of us kind of started getting like that. Sean on our team got it real bad. It's like this big infection on his foot and ankle pulled up. And so we had to like climb this, and then we went up to the top of the waterfall and it was like in water again. And that's where these like different little cold pools that you're talking about. And so you had to like swim through. They're about probably 500 yards. So you like swim through it, get out, walk, jump in another one, swim through that. And so it's like and the way it was so steep on the sides of the river that you couldn't actually walk on the land around it, because it's basically kind of like this cliff and then the river. So like you had no other choice but to swim across it. And so they did like warn us, like, be prepared to be in cold water. And so like we had these little like neoprene kind of tops and bottoms that we just kind of put on underneath like our clothes we had. And so like that helped, but like I hate the cold. And so like getting through it, and my body weight, man, I don't have a ton of body fat on me. So it's like, I hit that cold and it's just like instant, just like, I'm like, I never felt like I was at the point of like hypothermia, but I was pretty close.
I can
So
imagine,
like,
man. A lot of people were struggling on the show. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like the neoprene really saved us. And so it was like, and it was after we climbed it, we slept. And so we were doing it through like the day, but it took us, we got out of it as the sun was going down. So we were like through this section basically the entire day. So it was
freezing the whole day.
Yeah. So it's like you're constantly in and out of this cold water. So it's like kind of that with kind of the elements we were dealing with all like the foot struggles. And then we had to like go through and we had another big hike out. So is this like constantly in and out of water and then trying to hike while you're in and that's kind of like the toughest navigating part too. So
did they have any medical people at the couple aid stations that you had, or like where you would see your crewmen? Were you able to get anything to doctor your feet up in the meantime?
Yeah, so they didn't skimp on anything kind of like medical wise, because like their safety of everybody was like their main priority. And so they had like, I can't remember how many different, I think like 5 or 6 different like medical teams kind of throughout, and they had like helicopters. They did a couple people like slipped in sections, broke some legs, and we saw like this helicopter come in and like basically helivac them out. And then like way eco challenge works, like if one of your team members had to quit or decided not to continue on, like your entire team was done. So it's like, so yeah, but they took care of, I mean, every part we'd have like a checkpoint, there'd be someone there, like the camps would be like a medical team's there and like, hey, can you look this up? And they checked out Sean and they like made markings on his ankle, kind of where the kind of infection was and where he had like the swelling. And so like we'd be able to see if it was getting worse, or so they marked that and they basically gave him some antibiotics and kind of helped with that. So it was, yeah, they took care of us pretty well.
Nice. Yeah, I would imagine it's a big liability, especially with as many people that are out there in the jungle, for sure. That's what I was wondering. Like some of the parts that looked super sketchy, like there's a couple groups that were like completely lost in the middle of like nowhere. And I'm like, oh, these guys are in trouble. It looked crazy. And how many days total was it that you were out there?
I think we came in 10 days, so it was like a week and a half, and I think 11 days was like the cutoff. So we came in like a full day before like the actual cutoff of it was.
Nice. Were you able to enjoy Fiji afterwards? You guys like post up for a week and chill out?
We could if we wanted to. My wife was in school, so she wasn't able to kind of go out there. So I came home shortly after, but we had to be out there. Like the race started on a Monday and we had to be there like the Wednesday before that to go through all like the orientation stuff, getting checked in. And then so like we got there, did the race, which was another like week and a half. And so by the time we left, we had already been there probably over 2 weeks. So we're
home.
But yeah, our other team members, they kind of stayed for another week, or kind of however you could do it, kind of however you wanted to. But
that's awesome, man. That seems like such an adventure, right? It's such a different vibe than like a triathlon. You got everything thrown at you. It seemed like something to remember for sure.
Yep. Yeah, the experience of it was the coolest thing. And like the way they had it, we were in like the middle parts of Fiji where like no one really ever goes. Not even like some of the like locals who are like in the big, like the capitals and the cities, like they're like, man, we haven't ever even been to these parts where you guys are going to go. And so like we're interacting with all these like little villagers and like the way the Fiji people are, they just love people. And so like they're so willing to help and do anything for us like that we wanted. We did come across a town and like we were kind of out of food, and they're like, oh, we got food, come inside this hut. And like James wasn't really feeling well at that part, so like we came in, she gave us some foods and some like hot liquids kind of to warm us up. And so James is kind of sleeping on the middle of this floor, kind of trying to feel a little better. And so like they're just like, we're so welcoming, and like it didn't matter like who we were, they didn't know us, like they just wanted to help. And that's just how Fiji was. And so like it's just like this cool thing of like we're all just like people. And it's like, and it's got this, and once like everybody is kind of immersed in this, because we didn't have any phones, we didn't have any like communication with like the outside world where we were at, is basically all the competitors in the race and like the people who like put on the race, and then all like the villagers. So like all of us was like on this like same level. And as like you take away like your popularity and like all that, and it's just like everybody's just like the same. And you're just like, it is cool because it's like we have these people like Bear Grylls interacting with these like villagers that just live off of their kava plants. And so it's like it's cool like have that contrast of like the different people, but no one cared like who you were or what you did or anything like that. So that's the coolest part of it for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it, man. I wish there was more of that stateside, you know. Sounds awesome. That sounds awesome, man. Well, so if that was in 2019, when did the talk start about the Conquer 100? When did he bring that to your plate and ask you to be a part of that? When did that start?
Yeah, so the Conquer 100 was actually never really in the works for a long time, because like we finished the 50 full Ironmans, the 50 days, 50 states, and we're like, yeah, don't ever want to do that again. And like basically James was speaking, and then everybody was like, oh, so what's next? What's the next big thing? And we're like, dude, there's nothing next. So like there.
Yeah.
And then so he's just speaking a lot. And then so 2020 hit with like the pandemic, and basically James' schedule went from completely booked with like speaking and all that, and like did basically nothing. And so it's just like now it's just like time and everything. And then he's just like, you know what? Like he always kind of had the thought of he wanted to do it, but didn't want to do quite the 50 again. And so basically like the summer of 2020, he's like talking with me. He's like, dude, I think we can. He's like, you think we can do 100? I was like, if we take out like all the driving chaos and all that, if we're just stationed one place this year, you think we can do 100? I was like, yeah. I'm like, I think we got it. He's like, all right. So basically we didn't really start, and he'd kind of originally planned it to be, so we did it March of 2021. So it was this last year. And so the original plan was to kind of start it at like kind of like start of the fall into summer of 2021. And so we basically have like a full year to prepare for it. So we kind of started training, and then he's like, no, I think we should start in March. And we're like, so basically from when we really kind of started it and planned it, it's like 4 or 5 months to like really the start of it. So didn't really actually start to get in motion until like the end of kind of 2020.
Okay. Now it was crazy, and it's funny to hear you say that you hate the cold, and then seeing like every post you made was like 18 degrees with like 40-mile-an-hour winds, snow, sleet, and hail. I'm like, oh my God, that's especially riding a bike. So I guess let's tell everybody you made a pledge to do the bike portion of the whole 100. So I mean that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I mean I'm not sure if many people even know that you did that, but that's a feat in itself, man. That's 114 miles spread out over 100 days. I don't know if you did the 101, but over 100 days, it's over 11,000 miles. Like that's like 3 trips across the U.S. Like there, back within the 100. I mean, that's a hell of a feat, man. That was awesome.
Yeah. So
when did you make that decision? You were like, well, screw it. If you're doing that, then I'm going to do this.
now, yeah. So Casey, he's a big runner, and he's mean, he can swim and stuff too. And so basically when James was kind of planning it and starting it, he's just like, he still wanted like our help, but he's like, I want you guys, what he's talking about, he's like, I want you out there every day with me on the bike. He's like, you think you can do that? I was like, I got it. I mean, like, I'd never done anything like close to that. I mean, like the closest thing was Eco Challenge. I was like, well, I was able to go 10 days straight, not like that. But like, I felt like my body kind of how it does it, like it recovers and kind of adapts pretty quick. And so he's just like, basically my goal or job was just to kind of be there with him on the bike portion every day and to get there. And basically when I was like, I don't want to just like show up and be there every day just to say I did the mileage with you every day. Because like my main purpose is to be there and to help James get through the start of the bike leg to the end of it. And so it's like my whole goal was basically be as strong as I can that entire moment every day. So he's basically all he has to worry about is just to ride and then get to the run. And so I basically took it on me like to be present in the moment and to basically go in with like that full intent and not just to get through the mileage, but basically be ready and to do whatever I needed to do that 112 miles. And so it was just like showing up with intent and purpose every day, no matter kind of what the conditions were. Like day one, like you said, it was 18 degrees. And so it's like, yeah, obviously like the highs and whatever you look at it, or I mean, they're like in like the 30s and 40s, but like that didn't happen until basically we're almost done with the bike. And so it's like, wow. So you look, because we had to start pretty early just to be able to get through it. So by the time we'd get on the bike, it would be a little after 7:00 local time. And so basically we'd planned probably 6.5 hours. That's kind of what we're planning on the bike. And so by the time we'd get like halfway through it, kind of started to warm up a little bit. But yeah, for the majority of it was in those extreme cold, and like basically kind of how Utah is with the weather. It's like it's 100 days. And so like you're looking at like a quarter of the year, there's never going to be a 4-month period where you're going to have perfect weather. And so it's like we had to start it like kind of later in the winter. So we knew we were always going to have to deal with some kind of cold, whether it's like the beginning of the year or the end of the year. And there's always be some kind of like extreme heat, because we get up in the hundreds, like once you kind of start getting into summer. And so it's like, basically ways how we are, like we could perform better kind of in the cooler conditions rather than like extreme heat. And so basically when we finished up is when we got, all this, we didn't have any fires in Utah, but like around us was like California had a bunch of fires, Nevada, and so like all this winds kind of picked it up, like, and brought it into Utah. So like basically, I think it was like the week after we finished, it was like terrible air quality, and then like heat was like and we had like that extreme heat index where it was like 100 and I can't remember what it was, but it's like basically like if we would have started it when we planned to, we would have been right in the middle of all that. And so it worked out, kind of suffering through the cold at the beginning of it. And man, we had so much wind and like that, but it was like better. We look at it from like the back end of it, and it's better to deal with all that than what we would have had to deal with.
Yeah, man, it looks intense. And I did my first race last year up in New Jersey when it was cold, and it's totally different doing like it's freezing temperatures like that, man. It's probably like a lot of learning on the fly. Like gets really, really brutal out there. How did your body hold up? Doing that every day for 100 days, although it's taking you six and change hours to do it, you're still taking the bikes afterwards, getting them clean. You're still like helping with the whole, mission. So, I mean, you had a lot on your plate. How did you hold up? Was there any time where you were like just not feeling it, or how did it go for you?
Yeah, I held up. Actually, my body held up really well through the entire thing. Like, I mean, I had like a few days where I felt like super tired. It's kind of more like the back end of it. Like early on, once my body's kind of adapting to kind of what we're doing, I had some moments of like kind of fatigue, but nothing really like sore or like muscles hurting. Is more just fatigue and my body just tired. And because like what we basically, because I helped coach James through it too, and so I was helping get him ready. And then I knew his power kind of where he needed to be at, so we go off of his power on the bike. And so we had a separate computer also for like tracking purposes. Like if his went down, I had a separate one that was connected to like his heart rate monitor and his power meter on his bike. And so I was able to monitor like all of his metrics like in real time. So I was like riding right there next to him. And then so I was like constantly kind of looking at like what his data was, where we needed to be. And so basically taking the majority of what kind of what you'd have to think about during a day and just basically cut it out completely. So it was basically to show up, get through the bike, and that's it. So like all like I tried to limit as much that he had to like think and process through the entire thing, just because, you know, like he'd get pretty fatigued and drained. And so it's like take one less thing he'd have to worry about and put that on me. And so it was like a lot of it was like the mental fatigue that came in, and like I didn't really experience it until like after, like once we like kind of shut down and I basically gave my mind the time to take a break, as when I was like, oh yeah, I'm tired. Like and so I was like, once you're in the moment and you're so kind of invested into it, like your mind is incredible, like what it does. Like I was like, oh, I can, like I don't feel sore or tired at all, and like I can do this forever. And so it's like, but once I like basically like, we stopped, I like slept, and it's just like, no, you need a break. And so it's like,
yeah,
kind of protecting my body from what was really going on. And then once I allowed it to, then I had to kind of like process and work through kind of like that fatigue. And then I basically shut down for like a good month and a half, and then just I had a race I was getting ready for too. So I was like, then I kind of started to get back into training a little bit, but for during the whole thing, I was really impressed kind of how my body was and how it held up and what I was able to kind of keep doing day in and day out.
What were you doing for recovery when you would get done? Would you do like compression boots, or I saw you in the jacuzzi warming up a little bit? What else were you doing for recovery?
Yeah, so I'd get massages twice a week. I'd do that. I had like the recovery boots. I'd throw those on every day. We had the hypervolt, the guns, and so it was kind of basically just massaging out, and then I'd kind of just kind of stay on top of just like my calories and that too, just because I knew like that was like a conscious, I wasn't like monitoring exactly how many calorie was, but like I could feel kind of what I was doing day after day. As I was probably getting 8,000 calories maybe, just to kind of stay up on my body fat, just because what we're basically riding at these low zones. And so it's like, that's like your fat burning zones. And that's how, kind of where we had to like keep it. So it's like a lot of it was burning fat during the ride. So I had like this like low moving effort that I had to kind of consciously be aware about how many calories I was getting a day, because if I got depleted on that, then I start losing a bunch of body fat and my mass, and then I'd kind of my energy would be real low kind of going into the next day. And so it's just basically getting food, get some good proteins and stuff back into my body once we finished. And then it was just kind of shutting down and just kind of keeping the muscles warm and loose and kind of getting them back to kind of good state to be ready for the next day.
would you go out on I know you were there, but for like the swimming portion and the running portion, would you go out periodically and just join them for a little bit, or were you, once your bike portion was done, you would just focus on getting ready for the next day, have the bikes ready? What was kind of your game plan for that?
I didn't do any of the swims, just because when he would start, that's basically when I kind of get going. And then I had to go to James' house, get all the bikes ready, put them on the car. And so like, basically I was like monitoring kind of what my sleep was. And so showing up with like the most rest I could. And so because he had to start swimming early. And so I didn't do any of the swims. Some of the runs I went out for a little bit, but mainly on kind of days where he's kind of feeling a little bit more than others. And so it's like basically kind of like me and Casey did during the 52. We were kind of like the comic relief for a lot of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like kind of how we are. And like, man, like life's fun. And so it's like basically like show up, like there's so many cool things like in life, and just to bring some like a little bit of laughter, a little bit of humor to like kind of whatever is going on. And like kind of how me and Casey kind of both are in kind of general. And so it was like we never had a lot of moments of like us together because we were kind of separate and everything. But so I'd go out there, I have like a kilt, and so one day James was hurting pretty bad. I had my kilt on, blasting some Scottish music, dancing around, and so just bring a little kind of light energy to like the people. There's a lot of people coming out too for every portion of it, and so it's just like giving the people kind of something like more enjoyable too. And so it's like I'd go out for just like little bits, but mainly just to kind of be out there when I knew James was kind of struggling the most, and it's just to kind of give him just a little bit of different energy, different like kind of thing to kind of separate what he was doing. And so I'd go out for little bits on runs, but no like big long parts of it, just mainly a little bit, just kind of bring a little different energy to that moment.
Yeah. I saw you in the Superman outfit. You were out there flying around. I saw that, man. It's good. You got to have that. I mean, even on the 50-50-50, like seeing you and Casey out there just goofing off, like that's what it's about. Like you need that type of like, humor and just having some funny moments out there, man. Like you said, like you got to make the best of what you're doing. And and I love that with you guys. It's totally my vibe too. So I can totally get down with that. And like you had mentioned, you guys had so many people come out for each of the different legs of it, right? Because like with the 50-50-50, it was probably hard for people to join along. But with this one, since you guys had your own course like mapped out, I mean, I would see constant stories from you and James that, you're just like people are coming out doing their first full triathlon or doing just the bike portion, and you would meet so many awesome people. You made so many cool friends. I mean, how was that just, having the rides on those super cold days, but riding deep with like a bunch of strangers, but it's all love. It's like, it's good stuff. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, the community support was one of the coolest things that came out of the Conqueror 100. And it's awesome because like it's the cycling community, like a lot of like, because we have some pretty big like triathlon clubs and that, and like some of them would come out, but like the most support we had was like all these different little like cycling clubs and groups that were kind of around the area. And like we're like real good friends with like some people now that we didn't even know who they were before we started the 100. And so it's like the amount of friendships that we like made during it was like unbelievable. And it was like one kind of awesome memory I have is like our second Saturday. So it was pretty early on, and like the first Saturday we had a bunch of people come out and join us. And so it was like we're like, oh, weekends are going to be pretty big. And so we come in, and like Friday night hit, and I was like kind of watching the news, and it's like, oh, snowstorm's supposed to roll in tonight. in the morning, and I was like, oh no. I was like, hopefully it doesn't. And it's like, I remember waking up, I look out, and it's just snowing. Like it wasn't really like sticking on the roads, but it was cold, and it was coming down. And so I was like, here it is. Today's the day. It's just me and James. And so like, I like mentally prepared myself. Like, it's just going to be the two of us out there. And so like, I get to the pool, still no one there. We get going, I go out, and then there's probably 20 guys out there.
Wow.
And so it's like, we start going, and like, man, we got like videos and photos. It's like snow's like, it's like you're driving, like snow's coming at you. Like there's this snow just coming down. It's just all over, and it's just slush everywhere. Everybody's like dirty from all like the mixing with the dirt on the road, and mud's kind of thrown up in your face. But like all of us, like, that's where I kind of learned like just gratitude, like just be grateful for like it absolutely sucked. It was cold. I didn't feel my toe probably the entire day. And so it's like, but like everyone, I'm like, no one has to be out here right now. I'm like, yeah, me and James are the only ones that has to, but like none of these guys have to be here. I'm like, they're choosing to be here. And so it's just that gratitude that they were willing to come and help us and support us however we needed to. And so it's like, so we're just laughing together, that you just kind of, you go through moments like that, and you're just, all you can do is like, man, what are we doing out here? So it's just like, everybody's just kind of laughing, you're just making light of the moments. And so it's cool how we had that support. And it's like, my main focus was just basically on James and what he needed to get through that day. And as like, everybody else was kind of coming out of that, but they're all looking after me too, because they knew I was kind of guiding the whole project and that, and like on the bike. And so they're basically took me under their wing as I was taking James under my wing. And so it's like, it's cool because we had a bunch of like regulars that would come out multiple times during a week. And so it's like, these guys knew kind of what our paces was. And so they'd like took them upon themselves to kind of basically help like the new people that come from other states to kind of ride with us. And so they're like letting them know. And so it's like, it didn't have to fall all on me all the time, because these guys would basically take that and they wanted to help out as well. And so it's like, it was cool to see how everybody came together just to help basically accomplish the project. And so that was one of the coolest things, was to see how everybody came together to help us get to the end of it.
Yeah, man, that's one of the things, that's one of the inspiring things, is watching you guys go through it. Because even on the run portion, he had a tough time with his shin and he had to walk for a good portion of it. But, hindsight, he was talking about looking back and just being able to enjoy that time with people that would come out and wouldn't normally be able to run the marathon, but be able to, just be inspired by him and walk along with him. And it's, that's one of the greatest parts about the ultra community, and what's kept me in it is really the community aspect of it, man. It's like sharing these moments with, like you said, strangers. And then after this event, you guys are like brothers and sisters. It's the coolest thing to go through these stressful and awful and beautiful moments, but come out the other side with like some badass friends, man. So it was really cool and inspiring to see that part, and I don't know if you guys expected to have that type of community involvement, but I'm sure at the end of it, it was probably like you said, looking back on it, like seeing, like I saw like a young kid coming out, the 15-year-old, and you have like other people, like you said, like regular people that maybe bike 10 miles a day that are coming out and putting this full distance bike portion of the triathlon. Like you guys are inspiring, people just in that community, and obviously, thousands online. So it was really cool to see. It was awesome.
Yeah, and it's cool because like once you kind of limit like the excuses you put on yourself, like you're always gonna go through some type of moment where it's like hard, difficult, anything like that. But like people would come out and they knew we weren't gonna quit, and they may be hurting. And so like I made a point just to like kind of talk to everybody out there, like, hey man, how you feeling? He's like, I can't say because I know you're hurting more than I am. I'm like, but people kept pushing further than what they thought they were. Like, they'd only plan to come out for me for like half the ride, but they're like, no, like, I can't quit now. You guys aren't quitting. So they'd like push themselves to do the full ride, or like to do the full triathlon that day, or like they're doing way more things than what they probably thought they were originally going to do. But once they got into it, like, no, I can't quit. I can't stop now. And they just go past the point of, and it's okay to take those moments that some people have to like rest or like whatever, but James would finish and they're like, oh, I still got 5 miles, and said, go head out 5 miles and finish at like 3 a.m. And so it's like, it's cool. The people just kept pushing themselves and pushing into like above this limit where they thought they would be at, and then to be able to expand above that. And so it's like, in those moments, kind of give yourself that time to kind of think about it, but don't make it your decisions based off how you're feeling that moment. Just to kind of let your kind of give yourself some time. You're like, you know what, let's just keep going, push yourself. And so it's like, once you kind of take the limits out, what you think you can do, and stop standing in your own way, you can accomplish so much more than what you thought you might have been able to.
Yeah, man. And it's great to see it firsthand, because a lot of times we see, people will DM us or message you and say, oh, you helped change or inspire me. But to see it like right in front of you, and to, like you said, see these people struggling, but pushing, I'm sure as this project went forward, it became way bigger than just you guys completing the 100. I mean, you guys were inspiring, people on the daily just doing that. Like, to see that is probably got to be, enough to finish that day, right? Like, just thinking of it in small blocks, like just to see this person or that person do this and thinking that they could never do it is inspiring enough to get you through those cold, windy days.
Sure. Yeah, it's pretty humbling too. And this like, man, like this constantly being like, man, you're inspiring me, you're doing this. And it's like, I'm like, man, I that's not why I'm here. And like, that's not me, but it's just like, basically it's me doing my own thing. And it's just like, everybody's like, I mean, like, I don't go out to kind of get the recognition or like that or that, but it's like, but like to hear people like, man, you're helping people out. Like, and so it's like, it's cool to kind of like to feel that, and just like know, I don't know, just like to see you can change and do something more than what you thought you could do, like myself.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. And I'll tell you again, you definitely put some inspiration on me watching the videos, and I know several my other friends watching it. So, and just for you, just your portion alone, just doing that bike ride, man, it was such a feat. That's awesome that you're able to pull through it, and without a hitch, no major injuries, nothing. Like, that's awesome. It's you're doing good, man. It's great work.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun. I was just happy to be able to be a part of it and be at that point where I was able to do it. And so, I mean,
tell me a little bit. I know I was watching, I don't know, it was more towards the latter half of the race. There was once or twice like a few wrecks on the bikes. And I know there was one of them that was like a little sketchy where James went down. Walk me through what happened on that point, because I know that was like a sketchy part of the day with the one rider got caught up in the front tire.
yeah, so there's a few kind of, because we'd get so many big like crowds out, and the one where like James kind of went down, there wasn't a lot of us, and everybody was kind of more experienced, and so this like it wasn't a ton of people, and so it was one of those days where we kind of weren't really thinking. I mean, we'd get days where we have like 50, 60 riders out, and so it was just like it's like chaos. And so it's like, but it wasn't, it's just like a normal day, we're chill, we're just kind of going. And this lady, so she was riding and I was behind her, and then James was behind me. But like on this section, we'd finished up, we're kind of on our way back, kind of finished, had probably, was it like 20 miles left maybe. And so we're going, and like it's kind of like the front like crosswind, and so I'd kind of cheated out a little bit just to kind of give James a little more protection. And then all of a sudden we're going, and all of a sudden like I hear this noise, and I just like kind of glance over, and I just see like this basically a rear tire coming past the side of my face. and just like look at the bottom of a bike. I was like, what the? And so I just kind of like look back and I see James like hit her, and then he starts going over. And so she had like an arm warmer get stuck up in her basically the front spoke. And so it just wedged, and it just basically came to an instant stop. And she went up over down, and then James hit her. And then there was another guy behind James that kind of went as well. And so like James actually ended up breaking his back. He had like a little spinal fracture on it that we found.
Oh,
Like actually he went through, and then like after he finished the whole 100 or whatever, is like 2 months later, he's like, oh, my back's still kind of bothering me. Went and got it like x-rayed and all that, and he had like I think it was like the L4 or something, was like he had a little fracture in it. And so it's like, and he ended up he got a good little concussion that he kind of taken care of recently. It was did like a little kind of brain cognitive therapy, kind of bring it back from that. So it was just like, yeah, it's one of those moments like I'm there to like prevent stuff like that happening. So it's like it's super emotional for me, just because I was like, man, like that should be me in that position and that. And he's like, dude, don't think like that. Like it's what happened. And so it's like once you get going, he's like, I'm good. And so it was one of those scary moments. And we had a couple kind of things, close calls like that. And like I came super close to going down on one of them. This guy kind of went off the side of the road, came back in. Another rider kind of went over on top of him. We kind of had like a pretty good pack that day. And so I just kind of started seeing stuff in front of me going on, like, so I was kind of watching and just trying not to make any sudden movements. And James is on the right of me. So I'm like, I know I can't really go right, but like right in front of me, this guy, he ends up going over this other rider. And I just kind of snuck by the right of him, and we all just kind of escaped that. But yeah, there's a few little dangerous, sketchy moments throughout the whole thing. But it's like, man, you watch, I was like watching the Tour de France this year, and then like it seemed like, there's so many crazy like accidents, and like what you have to be so like mentally engaged and like constant of like your surroundings. And so it was like, man, like we look back and we're like, man, I'm surprised there wasn't more than what there was, just because of the amount of riders that were coming out, especially towards like the end of it. The last day we probably had over 200.
Wow.
But that's maybe more than that. So it's like, is this a massive just peloton just rolling down the streets? And so it's like, it's just like, and so it's like, we look back at just like how many people were coming out, and we're lucky that that was, as far as like with us, that was the biggest one that had happened, was this when James went down that one time. But I was like, man, it could have been so much worse or more than what did go down. And so we're lucky on a lot of that part.
Yeah, for sure. To do 100 bike rides in 100 days with a lot of people that don't normally do that. Yeah, that's, you guys came out pretty good.
Yeah,
it could have been a lot more sketchier for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So we just like look back at a lot of different things. Like, man, I don't know how you like in the moment. It's just always just like, no, let's take a day at a time, and nothing's gonna quit, and like we can solve any problems we have. But like you look back and like, man, how do we get through like a lot of the things that we did or like did happen? And it's just like, it's crazy to look back, like even with the 50, where it's like, I don't know how we did it, but like it's just like I'm so present. It's just like your only option is just to kind of keep finding a way to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned when this thing ended, you took like a month off and just tried to recover. What did, as far as like mentally, what was it? Because like you're saying, for 100 days, 100+ days, you're super focused in the moment. And like you said, once it's over, it hits you that you're exhausted. But how did that affect you like mentally? Like you didn't have like like a mission or a goal each day to do. Did they kind of mess around with you a little bit, or were you just happy to take a break?
Yeah, no, I kind of had that like mental kind of, I wasn't having like brain fog like James kind of was having, but it's just like I was so structured from day to day, and I knew exactly what I was doing that day, or like what I needed to do every day. Cause like I had my main goals of getting the bikes ready, get the bikes clean, get them all fixed up and right. And so like I knew what I had to do every day. And this became this so structured thing for over the 101 days. And so once I kind of just like stopped it, now is this like getting back into like normal life. And so it's just like there'd be days I'd like wake up and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know, like, what am I gonna do? I'm like, I don't really feel like doing anything, but I got to do something. And so it's just like kind of figure out what I wanted to do, or like, so is weird just kind of knowing like my mind didn't want to do anything, but it had to do something. And so it's just like that weird kind of mental state. I fell into this, is kind of like a depression-ish, but like you come off something so high for so long and all of a sudden this stops, and it's just, now you're trying to find your purpose again and like what's next. And so it's easy to kind of fall in that funk. And so like I did for a little bit, and then I kind of got started doing 75 hard. And so that kind of gave me like the structure of like, no, these are my tasks for this day. And so that helped me kind of come back out and like, all right, let's start. Because with that, you have to do a couple exercises a day. And so it's just like basically like routine things. That's more of like a mental kind of help and mental building. And so something more for like a mindset. And so like, it's good to kind of get that structure again, and then be able to kind of figure out what to do after that.
Yeah, 75 hard is good for that, man. That'll get your 75 hard will definitely get you with the schedule, you know, because I know it's 2 workouts per day, one of them outside, read 10 pages a day, drink a gallon of water. So it's good to have structure like that. And I can only imagine coming off so structured for those 100 days. I can only imagine you're gonna have that lull. You know, you hear that all the time from athletes when they're doing something so big and then it comes off that. But knowing that, you can kind of work through it and stuff. So I do have to ask you, which everybody's probably asked you, what's next? Do you have you thought of doing any big things on your own, any big ventures, or any like super long distance racing?
Not really yet, but man, just kind of have fun as we kind of started getting into the like gravel bikes and a lot more mountain bikes. And like, so we're going to go do rim to rim here in April, sort of a few months. And then James puts on his X-Tri race, the Starvation. So
I just saw the email for that. Yeah, it looks intense.
Yeah, I'm going to do that one.
Nice.
So it's kind of a few races here and there. Nothing, I haven't thought anything like super big yet, but
sure.
Starvation that's a good long day. So just kind of, that's focus right now is get ready for that one, and rim to rim, and just kind of throw some other cool little bike challenges and races here and there. And so
awesome, man. Well, I tell all my listeners where they can find you, because you know, I can give my firsthand experience of having you as a coach. I mean, everything is very detailed and structured. You tell you what kind of goal that you're trying to accomplish, and you have everything. It's very straightforward, listed in the app. I had a great experience with you. So where can they find you for the coaching program, and where can they find you online?
Yeah, so Instagram, I'm Hopkinsanity. It's my last name mixed with Sanity, because that's who I am. But just on there, James' website is Iron Cowboy James, or it's IronCowboy.com, and so either Iron Cowboy James on Instagram or me, and message us, and more than happy to help you out.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure to get your experience on these crazy adventures. Keep up the good work, man. You're inspiring thousands of people. I love to see you doing all this stuff, and thank you for coming on, man.
All right, appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. We'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you.
Bye.